for having us. It's a delight. So welcome everybody from Minnesota, where I'm sitting. I probably have met many of you before, either in person or another Zoom webinar sort of situation. So nice to see you again. I have two other delightful people with me today. I have Tom. Tom can wave his hand because he's the only Tom sitting there, but there's Tom. Tom Kiesel. He is helps keep our social media and marketing department running smoothly, has years and years and years of experience with this. And Hollis Murphy, she's our brand manager and art director, and also does a little bit of sales. And she is the face behind all the graphic art that you see on the Beyond Indigo website or this PowerPoint here. We're bringing in loads and loads of years of information or experience. I, for one, have been working in marketing since 1995. So that's kind of a little bit of background of why we're here, how we're here. When I do presentations, I like to cover the why. So just so you know, we're going to talk a little bit about the why you should do something. A lot of people talk about you should do something and make it a statement, but you don't understand the why or the reasoning behind it. And I assume everybody is educated, intelligent adults who can make your own choices and decisions if you're just given the information ahead of time to make those choices and decisions. Also, I feel it's really important to address as many of your own personal pain points as possible. So I'm not guaranteeing we're going to get to all of them, but you can certainly type your questions in the chat box. One of us, depending on who of us is speaking, we're rotating through. We'll try to get to your questions and answer them either within the chat box or within the presentation itself. So please, please, please just put your, hey, this is my question, this is my bugaboo, this is where I'm stuck, or I've just always wondered why does this happen this way? And maybe you can satisfy my curiosity. So that is what the chat box is for. So you don't have to wait until the end, just kind of consciously stream. We are very used to carrying out two simultaneous conversations at once on Zoom, so you won't throw off our stride or our rhythm. So please, if you have some questions or whatever, that's great. If not, you can certainly email us and we will get to you personally. Like sometimes people don't want to ask about their own craziness in their own practice. So just send us an email. We'll reach back out to you and we'll plop those in the chat box as well. So that's all the kind of homework kind of basis here for our presentation and kind of what we're doing. All right, let's dig in. And thank you all for coming today. So what is digital client communications and why does it matter? It's pretty much communications or any touch points that people have now, which keeps multiplying on the day, which gets very confusing because like when I started, we just had a website and then there was this thing called search engine optimization, which really hit stride in 1998 when Google came on the floor. And then Facebook showed up and we're like, what the, fill in your favorite swear word, is this? And then social media has expanded into multi-platforms. SEO has multiple platforms and places people can be reached. Now there's this thing called reviews, which is what people get hung up on a little bit, and rightly so. And all of these are digital communications. So what does digital communications do? And gosh, I want to like segue in here just a little second and say it depends on generation too. So, you know, like I was just on spring break with my daughters, 15 and almost 25, and man, the way they move in conversations with digital media and have an in-person and a digital media conversation at the same time is a way game changer than somebody in other generational marks. So just to add a little extra flavor to that sauce, you also have to think of it as digital communications generationally. So what does it do? It builds relationships with your customers. How you do your communications, how you are seen can improve your search engine rankings. Your overall reputation online, it's not discovered in one place or another place. It's the whole story based on a human's touch points. And by the way, we don't all look at the same touch points in the same order, or we don't look on the same website in the same order. So that adds to the plate of fun, right? The goal is to book more appointments or to enhance your customers that you already have. Some people are like, whoa, I don't want more customers. We're like, yeah, but you can enhance the ones that you have so that the experience they have online matches the experience they have offline. And that's really, really important too, which builds positive relationships with your current and future pet owners. But what if that doesn't go well? So if you're not building your communications, which is a funnel, which we'll get to, it can have a negative effect. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Why does digital communications matter? And when should you be working on that? When should you be working on that digital communication piece? So that's kind of the why. So for example, everybody hates a negative review, and rightly so. Those sting mightily when they come through. They can sour a good cup of coffee in the morning and make you want to have an adult beverage at 9 a.m. It is really hard to get emotionally past a negative review. When you get a negative review, you have missed opportunities upstream to that to perhaps manage the client communication more effectively so it doesn't actually land on the review. So the review is the last place that you want to be trying to deal with a negative communication. You want to try to back the truck up and deal with client communications on different platforms in different ways. So hopefully, ideally, that negative review never lands on a review platform, instead gets addressed in other places that are less publicly seen. So that's our goal. That's our conversation here. So touch points, there's a lot of them. Just like I was saying, this is where people's eyes cross and you're like, throw up your hands and you're like, I'll deal with it later. Later could be 3 months down the road. But the thing with marketing works like a train on the tracks. It can be tedious. It can be drip, 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 but that's how the internet works. Why does the internet work that way? That's because Google has declared it so, Facebook's declared it so, Yelp's declared it so. Every platform has declared digital marketing is a drip, 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 drip conversation. It's like feeding the beast, which can be exhausting. It can be fun some days, but other days you're like, man, I don't got it in me. I just don't. And then it throws your marketing all off. So we have in person. Sally and Sue are talking at the dog park about where to go for a vet, and that's a conversation. But then that person's going to go, probably sitting right there, whip out their phone and check out the website or social media or wherever they go first. And it's not always the website. So you can't assume they're automatically going to a website. They may be going to Facebook or Instagram, or they may be going checking out your reviews. There's multiple places for people to find information out about your practice, and most likely they'll check out at least one or two. Google is saying that there can be up to 11 touch points before somebody commits to a new business. So if you are actively looking for clients or growing your client base, people will be checking multiple of these touch points, perhaps up to, I can't even speak today, before committing. So think about it. These are all opportunities to control the flow of communications before it hits your review pocket and central and wherever people are looking. So now what? How do we control those communications? But before we go there, just think. With the reliance of digital platforms, consumers to make their decisions, they look at public feedback as a significant factor in choosing a practice. Also, I'm going to throw in the heap. We're kind of gotten good at it. So we're connoisseurs of reviews. So think about that, think about yourself, think about where you go before you make a purchase or you use a service. or before you buy something, how many reviews are you looking at, and what does that do to your purchasing decision? So kind of keep that in mind. Okay, moving right along. This would be Tom. Once we move the slide.
I guess I need to unmute myself. So before I get into the reviews and the public feedback, I'm going to dive into one of the channels that we touched on briefly on that slide with all the pictures that you might have had your mind boggled with. And I'm going to look at, so I'm going to cover a lot of these things in here, but a big piece of what I'm going to cover when it comes to reviews is you have your review sites, and that also ties in with your email communication and your texting, and also part of the messaging services. But before I get to that, because that's like the bulk of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about that bottom left-hand corner here, social media, because that is a very as much as it might pain us and how it seems like a lot of work, and sometimes it feels like it can be a little reward. And once you have that flowing smoothly, it actually flops, and it can be a lot less work once you have it streamlined with a good practice and really a high reward. And if you're doing any sort of online advertising, it's really a great it's a very cost-effective medium. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the social media touch point. So this is, so when you think about social media from a veterinary standpoint, it's more than just posting cute pictures and getting likes. I mean, that is good, but what social media is really good for us, for the veterinary practice, is to kind of educate your customers. And because an educated customer, the more they know, the more likely are to realize, when they need to bring in a pet for something. And when they get that information from you versus somewhere else, the more likely they are to choose you when they do have to bring that pet in there. But it's also a great place for engagement. And here's a nice little example here. We made this nice post, and it's obviously adorable, but we have the captain is the dog there, and I'm not sure the cat's name, to be honest with you, but we post there, and we use them as kind of a learning tool. They're a theme for our social media for this practice. So whenever we're teaching new subjects or talking about new subjects, we kind of use captain there to do that for us. And here's just some of the feedback we got, and it is just great, right? Like, it just shows how much this person really cares. They send us a picture of their dogs, and we go and love them and tell us to share some news. These people moved, so they can't visit, but they still stayed in contact with us. So it really gives that nice connection, but beyond, and it's more than a connection for Brittany here. It's a connection that there's a lot of lurkers on social media, right? A lot more lurkers than there are active participants. But the lurkers are doing more than just looking at your posting. They're looking at how you engage with your clients here. So this is a good, using social media. You don't want it to be a one-way street where you just kind of yell into a vacuum and don't listen to the responses and engage with people. So you have to do kind of a twofold. You make the post, and then you have to follow back with the post and make sure you're doing the small things, engaging people, because it gives someone comes and sees this post, and they're going to see, well, look at this. They must be a good veterinarian. This lady moves. She's sending pictures of her posts. We have another customer there saying, you have a wonderful team. We go ahead and reply. It just shows that we're engaged, right? And shows that we care, that we're available. You can make it. You can, when you see, we've all gone to like a Facebook page for like a restaurant or something, and it kind of looks like it's just a black hole. The last post was 2 years ago, and your first thought is, are they even open, right? You don't want to leave that inference in people's mind. You want to give the exact opposite of, look at how engaged they are, and look at how much these people care. And it kind of really built a nice trust with the people, not just that you're talking to, but like I said, the people that are just kind of browsing. If we go to the next one, Hollis. Oh, I forgot about this little, see, Hollis does these wonderful little pop-ups here. But these are some of the important things that you want to do is you want to respond to pretty much every, even if it's just giving a like or a thumbs up, you want to go through and respond to everybody that comments on your posts. It builds engagement. It gives you more, ends up getting you more reach at the end with Facebook. So the more people will be able to see it. The more engaged you are, the more likely they are to show it to someone in your area or someone that is of a similar ilk than the people you're talking to, engaging with. So basically pet owners, in this case, that way when we do a little ad or something, they're pulling in from a bigger pool of people, and we can have a better reach and have more effective ads with a better ROI. So you really want to spend, you don't have to do it. Ideally, if someone sends you a message via social media, like the chat using the messaging tools, you'd really like to get back. You can automate some of that, which is a good idea, always a good idea, just to say, hey, we got your message. It could take us up to 24 hours to respond. If it's something important, please give us a call with your phone number. That way, you're not leaving anybody hanging, but you can also, but I try to respond within 24 hours to those, and even faster. It depends on your availability. So it really depends on how much your team can handle all the messages coming in from all those different places, which can be kind of difficult. So it's kind of good to have an intermediary to do that, or someone specific at the office that can do that. And just the post, I'd like to go through a couple times a week personally, just to give, like I said, the likes, the hearts, the loves, and responses to them, just so that everybody can see that we are an engaged practice that really builds trust. Next one is the feedback funnel. So what I just talked about was the social media. So now we're going to get a little bit more into the review kind of aspect. Both those things are very visible to other people. So I think that's why they're very important. Obviously, you're going to have someone there manning your phones, and ideally, if you have a chat feature on your website or any messaging tool, you'll have someone manning those. A lot of people have the text messaging, so hopefully you have someone that can monitor all that for you. These two things and those are just kind of one-on-one interactions. The social media and the reviews are more interactive and helps you build a good online reputation, which is what we're trying to help you do and understand it. So the feedback funnel, let me explain a little bit about what this is. So when we have a feedback funnel, basically we're sending out a quick survey, and you can have this automated from your PIMS. You can have any kind of trigger. So if you want to limit who you send this to, maybe you want to be selective on who you're picking, you can kind of do that and have a trigger, and this can go out to the client right after they leave, or whenever. Ideally, the sooner everybody leaves feedback more often when they eat it quickly. If you ask me something about 2 weeks ago, I'm not going to remember it. I'm less likely. So the sooner you get to them, typically the better, especially if they had a good experience. The feedback funnel, the goal of the feedback funnel is to kind of give you multiple things. One is to give you kind of a score to kind of evaluate and see how you're doing, how you can make improvements. But it's also to send them down 2 different paths potentially. So the one path, the good, if they're very happy and they're going to leave a review for you, that's positive. You want to send them straight as soon as possible. You want to get them to the review site to leave your review. So in this example, what you can see here, we're just basically asking them a question, and they can rate you 0 to 10. And we have it set up so if they give you a 9 or a 10, it goes straight to the slide 3 where it says, awesome, thank you super much. Please, we'd love it if you would consider leaving us a review right on one of these things. You have links to Google, Facebook, Yelp, and they can pick which one and go and they leave your review. So anybody that scores you outside of a 9 or a 10, we want to kind of gather that information. So what will happen then is it'll follow them down a survey, which asks them a little bit more information to get details and offers them the ability to contact you directly about an issue that they may have had. What this can do is make it less likely for them to maybe leave you a negative review if they weren't happy. But it also gives you a chance to gather important feedback to make an improvement. I always say the best way to have good reviews, that people want to know, how can I have good reviews? And the best way is to provide good service. Right? The answer is you're going to gather this information, and when there's a problem, you want to identify it and make improvements so that you can not have to worry about surveys going out and getting bad reviews. So the best way to do it is to gather the feedback, and this feedback funnel enables you to do it. So, well, this. Oh, I keep forgetting these. So I already mentioned that, but the survey. One thing I'm going to show you a couple slides down the road is something called a Net Promoter Score. So that's what this survey is kind of gathering. So what we're going to be able to do from there is aggregate some of that information. It's hard to get a list of 12 feedbacks and make them make sense without being able to aggregate them into something where you can kind of pull from them and identify areas. So that's a slide that down the road that we're going to show you. But the like I said, the survey is just two-pronged. It gives you the ability to hopefully leave good reviews, leave you a review, negative stuff to reach you out directly instead of leaving you a negative review, and to have that one-on-one communication for someone that is unhappy to try to improve. So now, unless there's another sneaky policy, reviews. So let's talk about reviews for a second. So reviews are more than just the number. It's more than just your 4.7 star. You have it, for one, it's an SEO thing. So for SEO, it's changed a lot over the years. It used to be you could just kind of stuff keywords into your website and you would rank high. Now the way Google operates is they're looking for better content. And one of the factors that they do look at is your review score. So if you are a 4.7 and your competitor is a 3.9, Google is going to put some weight there, and there's a good chance that you outrank them in the search engine results just based on that alone, regardless of how. I mean, the other stuff is important, right? You do still want to do some of the best practices, make sure you have a nice, speedy website, make sure it's full of relevant content. Google can parse your thing and kind of get an idea of what your website's on. They want to know that they're sending people to the right place. But reviews is another way to, if those things are equal in that, reviews can bump you up a little bit and put you above some of the competition, which is, as you know, very, very important. So with just like social media, with a review, you want to, like it says, craft your responses with care, because when I think of a review, I think of it as a good review and a bad review can both be good things, right? A good review is obviously good because it increases your star rating and it gives people nice comments to read about. But a bad review, not only does it give you the opportunity to fix something, but what it also does, and is really important, is if someone leaves you a bad review, you're aware of it, you now have the ability to reply to that review, right? And if you reply to that review, again, you're showing that you're active, and you always still have to be nice. So you might want to take a day or so, or a couple deep breaths before you respond, because you don't want to have that knee-jerk bad reaction. But when you go in, you have the ability to nullify that bad review by leaving a response that maybe politely disputes or politely points out why something happens, and it kind of lessens that in the mind of someone that's looking at your review. Because I know for me, I don't just look at the star rating 4.7. If I'm buying something, I go into the reviews and I look, and if I see negative reviews, but then I see, if it's a restaurant, I see people responding to it, and I can kind of form in my head an opinion of like, well, that customer was just mad, right? And that review doesn't seem to be very relevant. And this is what they did. So using the or responding to reviews gives you the ability to kind of nullify that thing and build trust. So it does, sure, it can hurt your star rating a little bit, but it also can put your potential customers' minds at ease, knowing that you responded to it and that you cared about what was going on. There's also a way. So one other thing you want to kind of do, and this is why it's so important to monitor your reviews at all times and kind of be on top of them pretty regularly. You might get that review that is just completely 100% unfair. Maybe you had an employee that left and is angry. And this is, unfortunately, we're speaking from experience here, where they go in and kind of review bomb you and trash you. You want to identify those because you do have some recourse there. If you just perform poorly, Google's not going to take that into consideration. But if it's pretty clear that someone's review bombing you or giving you a bad review that isn't justified, you do have the ability to go in and dispute that, and Google will potentially remove that review from your profile. So it's good to always keep an eye on them. It's great to respond to them. You should respond to everyone, every positive review, every negative review. You want to have a response, because not only are you showing that former customer that you care and that you're paying attention, but you're showing that to prospects as well, that you're an active client, just like on social media with the comments. But when you have a really bad one, you don't want to just let that sit out there, especially if you get multiple that are about the same kind of issue. You can get those removed, and that can greatly help your score. So now let's talk about, this is right. I wanted to get to, so I'm going to talk a little bit about consolidation, but I want to explain the Net Promoter Score a little bit more, and that's the score that we're getting from that survey. So when you get all that survey data, I don't know if you've done a survey, sometimes it can be very challenging to go through all that and to make sense out of where you have room to improve, what all the comments mean, because people will write you a paragraph. If you have to read 57 paragraphs, you might not get all that information, and it might be hard to remember if there's a theme. So kind of consolidating that all in one place, which we'll show you down the road here a little bit, is an important thing to remember. But it does give you the insight into your actual numeric score. And you can kind of see when you're consolidated properly, you can see how your score is promoting. Any survey tool that you use should be able to pull at least some form of this, where you can graph out and chart where your Net Promoter Score is headed. So you can see if you're at least on a proper trajectory. And then in a couple of slides, I'll show you how consolidating that data even more can make it a little bit more actionable. Next, as we talk about review consolidation. So ideally, like Kelly said, like we're going to talk about, there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's so many things that you need to take care of, and it's hard to do, right? It's hard for one person to do. It's hard to have this kind of stuff in the hands of, say, you're someone working at the front desk. Oh, by the way, that you're also going to do our social media. By the way, you're also going to look at our reviews and all that stuff. It's just very difficult to do. So consolidating that is extremely important to make it more manageable, right? So to make it so that someone doesn't have to go into all these various places. If you can pull that all that information into one place, we highly recommend that. And that kind of helps you navigate it and to make sure you're staying on top of it. This is an example of what we use, and what this is pulling in, and it shows us the reviews that came in, and it shows where they came in at, and it also gives us the ability, I'll show you on the next slide, to respond directly into there. So when you see the reviews, you can see really fast which ones have been replied to, which ones still need a reply, and then reply right in there. So you don't have to do a lot of hopping back and forth, finding where the review came from. Sure, most of them come from Google, but you do have multiple sites that could potentially get a review. Facebook, you can get a review. So if you pull them all into one place, you can quickly respond to them and make sure that you're staying on top of that, because responding is very, very important. And it's as simple as this. It's similar to what you see in when you do go into Google, but it's all in one place. So you can just respond right here. And then the nice thing about this is you can give yourself a little bit of breathing room, where you leave a response. You can have like a little bit of a timer where it's going to publish in an hour or so. So that way, if you walk away, if you answered angry, which you should never do, but if you answer angry, it gives you some time to change your response before it goes live and shows on the site. So that's one nice added feature. Kind of like it'd be nice sometimes if you respond to an email and then 5 seconds later you wish you didn't. You can't pull it back here. The way we use ours, it does give you a little bit of a buffer before it can go into the world where everybody will always see it and it will never be forgotten. So the next slide is one of the things I wanted to talk about with when you're consolidating. Typically you will get like in some nice reporting features as well, or is at least the ability to peruse a lot of information and try to identify areas for improvement or see where you're good at. This is actual data from one of our clients. So the greens are good and the reds are less than ideal. This isn't perfect. You can make your own kind of thing if you want, but this is pretty darn good, and it gives you an idea of where you're doing well, what is working, and where maybe you have some room for improvement. So right here you see Dr. Campbell has a big green thing, so that's a really good thing. So that would, right off the bat, you can have the idea that Dr. Campbell is getting good reviews and people are leaving good reviews. So maybe when reviews come around for Dr. Campbell, you're going to say, hey, you're doing great. It's one data point. If you had, say, a veterinarian that was in the red, that you could this helps you identify what you should look at. So you see this is pulling from all those surveys you did. You can also do it for reviews and see what reviews you're getting, and gives you kind of some ideas of where you should first kind of look to see. So if whatever is red, service, price, whatever it may be, it kind of gives you some clues of where to look, and then you can pull in those specific reviews and read them a little bit more and make some actionable things out of the data that you're pulling in. So not only, like I said, are you showing people that you care about being active in responding to them, listening to the suggestions they have, you're showing the world that is searching for people that you are doing so. So it's very important to always remember the review isn't just for that person. The social media comment isn't just for that person. It's for prospective clients that are looking for a new veterinarian or a new practice near them, or they're not happy with theirs. So I want to find someone with some good rating, good reviews, and good rankings. That's what they're going to look at, as well as, like I mentioned, SEO from a Google standpoint, where you can kind of win out a little bit on some of those rankings and show up higher on the page than your competitor, which is always good. And I think my last slide is, like I said, you want to dedicate time and resources to managing your communications, and it's easiest to do this if you have some tools in place to do so, or even just some processes, right? So everybody's super busy in the veterinary world, so it's hard to rely on a vet tech or someone to do this without them going home at night and feeling like they have to work to get this kind of job done. So if you can give them the right kind of tools or find a more effective way to do it, it can help you see positive results, and help you avoid some of the pitfalls of having negative reviews. It's really interesting when you look at, so there's an algorithm to the negative reviews, or I'm sorry, to the Google reviews, that isn't just 1 star equals this. They take recency into consideration and some other factors that they like to keep them mystery. But you can improve your score, not quickly, not easily, but you can improve it without needing an enormous amount of new reviews. It definitely helps, but it's really difficult to have a slump. If you have a slump, it brings you down and it brings your score down. It's really difficult to dig yourself out of that because you kind of want to avoid it. So it's important to maintain your positive reputation, then, like this slide says, than it is to repair it. It's kind of like I think about hiring people. It's, you know, cheaper to keep an employee and to train them than it is to hire people, someone new, and teach them all the new things. So same with like your reviews, it's cheaper, it's better to stay on top of it and maintain your positive reputation than it is to try to dig yourself out of a little bit of a hole. And you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're almost automatically dismissed because you have a 3.2 rating, which no one's gonna be happy about. And if you haven't taken the time to respond to those reviews, you haven't given your side of the argument, quote unquote argument, to try to build more trust with your potential clients. I think that is me passing it back to Kelly, and she's going to expand on the ways how you can approach this, how you can manage this and get it done at your practice.
Right. And also, Tom, just because this is our world and we breathe it every single day, right? Like this is what we do. We get up, we have a cup of coffee, we deal with this. A lot of times, it's interesting to me after I've seen throughout all the years of how marketing has changed and evolved. Maybe some of you have heard me talk about this before. I call it the marketing car. Just like your real car needs 4 wheels to run down the road simultaneously, so does your marketing car. So one wheel is a website. Another wheel is search engine optimization, which is actually 5 different levels these days. It's like organic and ads and mobile and local and voice. Then you have social media wheel, which we kind of touched on a bit today, but depending on your age and your demographic and your physical location, like where you actually live, that could be Facebook or Instagram. Some people are still really into Pinterest, next door, TikTok, all of these things play a part in it. And then your 4th wheel is online reviews and local search and how people see you in your local area based on word of mouth and such like that. And all of those wheels all take information from online reviews and use it in their own communication place. So communication really is the whole R, because like some websites, they have online reviews posted on them, for as testimonials, which is great, but some people may never go to the website. They may go to a social media platform, and the social media platform is taking people's communication and responses, just like how much you engage in a Facebook post or how much you engaged in an Instagram post or Nextdoor, how many people you do a little heart, all goes into the algorithm of how it's being seen. And even like Google ads, which some of you may not seen this, like some Google ads will show how many stars that a business has for their online reviews. And that's right at the top. And because Google, by the way, has it down, just a small side note, like we all have these like phones, these devices. Google knows it puts 4 ad slots at the top of the Google search, because that's exactly how many fit on a mobile phone before you have to scroll up. And then you see usually the 3-pack, which is influenced by reviews. The 3-pack is different 3 areas that are local that then flip over to a page that shows a map, which is real estate, which also shows reviews. And so it's really all interwoven, this client communication process. And each one of those wheels becomes really, 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 really important to maintain all the time, consistently, because that is how us as consumers consume it. So sometimes I see a disconnect in the veterinary space that what we do as human beings personally on our own devices is not The thought is, well, my customers will never do that. My clients will never do that. My pet owners will never do that, right? Depending on the type of business is the verbiage we use, but they do. They're just like you. And so how you are interacting with the digital communications today, like you're listening to me, you're listening to my team present a webinar, is also how pet owners are listening to the greater world. There's so many different places, e-newsletters if you do it, ads, social media posts, podcasts. There's so many podcasts out there these days. What is your digital communication method? Okay, so you figure that part out, right? Then what do you do with it? Because some of the disconnects we saw with frantic people during the COVID area is they weren't thinking, they were reacting, right? So the more that we could help hospitals get in front of the communication change and say, this is what you're going to expect, this is what you do, this is what you see online is what's going to be your experience offline. The more there is that continuity of messaging, the more likely that the messaging and the control of the narrative can be yours to control versus trying to put out a wildfire after it's already started. So it helps to have consistency is to have somebody manage it. So is it one person on the team? Is it one person who's managing social media, one person who's managing the website, one person who's managing the reviews? That's cool too. But are they talking to each other? Is the same narrative? Is it the same message? I always like looking at the big brands out there, regardless, whatever your favorite brand is, Apple to McDonald's to Nike, whatever your brand is, Sephora, they all tend to have one narrative running at one time and consistent messaging across all the platforms with graphics, with the slogan. Restaurants even have like their smell down because McDonald's all smell the same around the world. So you guys probably have noticed that. All of that adds into their marketing and their touch points. So that's something we can lean into about client communication skills and client communication messaging for you all. So one of the things that you can do, whoever's managing it in the practice, or if you lean on a marketing agency like ourselves to keep all those balls rolling, because some people are like, please. I'm like, great, we're here to help. You guys know animals, we know the digital world, that's great. Regardless, some conversation, some musing is, what is your tone? What is your messaging? What are you trying to communicate out there to the greater world of who we are? Some people are like, we're the only independent veterinary practice in town. That's how they want to be known. Okay, well, let's focus on that brand. Some brands are like, we're women owned. Okay, let's focus on that brand. Some people say we're really heavily invested in the shelter and we like working in the shelter and giving back there. Okay, so those are all tones and messaging. So think about it. What is your tone? What is your messaging? How are you known within the community? And also, how do you want to be known? So it's like 2 columns on a piece of paper. You all can just put it on the lunch table in the back room and say, what do you think we're seen as the community? And then you can say, how do we want to be seen in the community, just internally as a team. So there's one of those. You need a feedback funnel, like identifying all the points where people can talk and communicate to you and kind of insert yourself before that. So like surveys are really great. They're easy. It's digital. You can send it out. You can even control who gets the survey, right? You can say, these are our top 50 happy people who have walked through our door this week. They're getting it. The bottom 10 crabby people, not so much. We will deal with them with a phone call or some other way of trying to improve their experience, but maybe duking it out digitally on Yelp is not the best platform for that to happen. So identifying how to get ahead of the snowball that becomes an avalanche in your marketing funnel is a really good time to do that. Please have somebody who's cheerful or who is noticing details to respond to your reviews, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. if you can identify some personal piece of information that's not too revealing, like my dog, I have a dog named Noah and a dog named Winnie. If I came through the door and my practice said, hey, Noah's curls always make me want to sink my fingers into him. It was so great to see him today. And, and they say that in response to a review I leave, I would be over the moon. I'm like, because Noah does look like a walking teddy bear. But it isn't releasing too much private information out there into the wild that I wouldn't want to be released. So think about that, how you can do a little bit of crafting, because the lurkers are out there are like, if they're that friendly with their current pet owners, maybe they'll be that nice to me. And honestly, people, and you probably might nod your heads to this, we're all exhausted. We're all worn out. We're just trying to do our best every single day. And if I can get a little bit of niceness in return and go to some place who's going to be nice and helpful to me and take care of something that loves me unconditionally, and I want to give him or her the best possible care that I can, because they love me so much every day with wiggles and tails and sloppy grins, then that's appealing to me as an end user. So think about that. Think about that. And if it's overwhelming, work with somebody, work with a trusted partner who keeps their pulse on this. I go to my veterinarian who explains what my blood panel report looks like on an ongoing basis and keeps my animals healthy on an ongoing basis. And that's invaluable to me, absolutely invaluable. In fact, I drive 40 minutes one way to go to my vet because it's so invaluable to me and they speak my language. Marketing companies are doing the same thing. So find a marketing company that you can work with. Make sure you like them. Everybody's like, well, you want every customer. And I'm like, no, marketing is kind of like dating. Actually, you need to like the people you're working with, or marketing will become the last thing you do. You'll wash the kitchen sink before you call your marketing company. So make sure it's somebody that matches and vibes with you, that gets your brand, who wants to work with you, who's excited about your brand, who's passionate about your business, and who can make you shine on the internet, who also has all these doohickeys that we've shown you today. If you don't want to work with a marketing company, make your job easier, people. Life's hard, like I was saying. Get some software, like that software we're showing. We can license that to you so you can manage it all yourself. You don't even have to talk to us, but make your lives easier, because trying to follow your brand across multiple review places, you won't do it. I mean, I'm just going to call it. You don't have the time. You're not going to do it. If you think you have the time, again, it'll go underneath the kitchen sink. Clean the kitchen sink goes above the list. That goes last. And then at some point during the day, you face plant at night and it's game over and you start the next day with the best intent and wishes. So we're here to help. We're an educationally based company. We, like I said, answering the whys. Hopefully we've answered the whys. You guys have been, we must have answered all your questions because you're not posting them in the chat. So if you have any questions and you want to post them in the chat, I mean, reviews have been around for a really long time. I get it. But the spin of talking about controlling the narrative upstream before it hits the reviews is kind of a new concept. Like, where do you interject yourself into that conversation so you can control the output a little bit easier?
That was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get some questions here. I think it's kind of, I see a lot of posts on forums about the person that the hospital feels like they've gone all out for, but then they still drop something terrible. Like they declined all treatment and then just blasted the vet hospital, so it sounds like, at least I'm only reading the one side of it, but it sounds like the vet hospital feels like they did everything upstream that they could have to try to explain and help. What about those people that are just, they're going to be angry no matter what? Do you respond to them on social media or respond to that review?
That's a good question, Hawk. Those are where the surveys come in handy to try to get ahead of them. So if they're going to blast somebody, it's not blasting it on a public place. It kind of opens a box and they can just pour their little heart and souls out. and see if you can help it with that. I mean, some people, if you pay them $1 million, are still not going to be happy. They woke up trying to be crabby that day for whatever agenda they have. They just want to be miserable, right? And please don't convince them otherwise, because they're working really hard on being crabby and miserable. But if we can divert that negative stream into a different place, there's a chance then it's not there. Now, let's say they do land publicly. It's just best to acknowledge it, like say, listen, I see that you have some strong feelings about this. Here's our phone number. Why don't you reach out, give us a call. We'll have a longer discussion on the phone, right? Because then the lurkers out there realize that you're responsible, that you're responding in a kind, considerate voice. Again, we're connoisseurs of reviews. We can tell a lot of times the negative Nellies out there and who are just have their undies in a twist and just want to try to get something back, right? Like, it's just like, we've just become sensitive to that sort of thing. And we can just go, oh, it's one of those people. What's more important is how you as a business responds to it than the wall of text or crabbiness that comes across, because you're just being polite about it. Like, we're here to help. We want to address it. We actually want to spend more time with you than responding to review. Give us a phone call. Here we go. Just let us know.
Right. And those surveys, is that something you would recommend a hospital send out as a blast to all of their clients, or would you have them do it as a, like, what do you think of the ones that are after you've left the office and you get an email that says, how was your most recent visit? Do you have is there a tactic that you prefer?
We prefer sending them to the happier clients. If you know there's a negative client who's crabby, I would send them a personal email. Give them a place, divert the rage, right? Divert it into an email that they can dump into versus dumping it into a public place, right? So you're still reaching out to them. You're just giving them a different venue of where to drop their message. That's in a little bit more controllable space.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And you tend to know which people those are going to be before they leave the building. So,
right. And some people are like, well, that takes more work. Yeah, well, it takes a little bit more work to send them a personal email, or does it take a lot more work to try to contain a raging fire in a public place? Like, it's going to take work, right? So it takes a little work here or a lot of work here, right? Now, it doesn't mean that they're still not going to go there, but there is post fatigue. So once people have said their minds, a lot of times they don't have the gumption to go say their mind again in another place, right? It's just the ship runs out of steam, so to speak. And that's kind of what we're working with. Let's just wear them out a little bit and then let them kind of go on to the next rant of the day, which is probably not you, right? They're probably going to have fun, but it's not you. Yeah.
Yep. No, this was all really good. I also really appreciated Tom's cat who made a guest appearance. So
yeah,
right as he was talking about the animal mascots, you know, that his cat made sure that that was perfect timing. They always want to get in view right when you're talking or on the phone or something, just like a child. So that was great.